Jordan, there's two things that I really wanted to discuss today regarding Texas OU. One is, I think the easier discussion to have is the discussion of the Texas defense. And we've seen the Texas defense put together these great performances. And while the offense struggled early with Quinn kind of working, and look, Quinn's never going to admit he was rusty or just needed to get settled in. He's never going to admit that publicly, but I think we could tell he was off to start that game. For the defense to basically defend three short fields, I think one of those possessions started at like the Texas 45. One, Oklahoma was at the minus 49, and I think the other one was at the minus 47. So basically, you're defending three short fields. You give up 2.8 yards per play, and you only give up 3 points. You force a missed field goal, a punt, and then a field goal. Everybody keeps making excuses for the Texas defense and excuses of, well, they haven't played an elite offense. Well, Michigan didn't have a quarterback. Well, OU was down a bunch of receivers. Well, Mississippi State had a first-time starter. Well, UTSA isn't what we've seen them be. Well, blah, 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 blah. I don't care at this level of college football who you're facing. When you're a defense that has done something at Texas that has not been done since Tommy Nobis was on campus and still had remaining eligibility, then you're in a pretty good spot. You're doing something right. And what I mean by that is the 38 points this defense is allowed. 38 points. We're halfway through the season, and this defense has not given up multiple touchdowns in a game. Through two SEC games, they've given up one touchdown. 38 points allowed is the fewest for a Texas defense in a 6-game start since 1964. So at some point, people need to stop talking about the offenses this defense has played and maybe just understand, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, this Texas defense is really good. Because if this was Oklahoma's defense, if this was Alabama's defense or Georgia's defense or Michigan's defense doing that, I guarantee you we wouldn't hear near as many voices and they wouldn't be nearly as loud as saying, well, who have they played? They haven't really played anybody. They haven't faced a good offense yet. Guess what? Texas isn't probably going to face an elite offense the entire regular season. The best one they're going to see is probably the one they're going to see on Saturday against Georgia. And I don't know that I'd call Georgia's offense elite. It's very good. But to me, an elite offense, like the 2005 Texas offense, that's an elite offense. 2019 LSU, that's an elite offense. 2020 Bama, that's an elite offense. They're not going to face an elite offense, but Jordan, at this point, I don't think it matters. The way this team is layered from front to back, they've got difference makers at all three levels. They are doing stuff on this campus in this program that hasn't been done, like I said, since, less than a year removed from the JFK assassination. Like we're talking about a really, really salty defense that deserves their flowers. And let's stop getting everything with a caveat and just take a minute to recognize how great this defense is.
Yeah. And I don't know, for me, I think there's a lot of reasons why, they're not really getting, I feel like, the credit or coverage they deserve from a national perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of it is that Steve Sarkisian's their head coach. What I mean by that, he's clearly an offensive guy, right? Think about Brent Venables, clearly a defensive head coach. Whenever things like that happen, people are naturally going to give more credit to whatever side of the ball that head coach, has kind of built his career off of, which, like I said, for Sark is offense. So, the casual people, they're going to say,
by the way, Anthony Hill, SEC co-defensive player of the week this week.
Who did he share it with?
I just saw the tweet from the Texas football program. I'll look it up real quick for the SEC official site. I don't know.
Do they got
11 tackles, 3.5 for loss, forced fumble, I think 1.5 sacks. I'll look it up here in a second.
Yeah,
I'll look it up right now. Sorry for interrupting you.
Yeah, no, you're good. Well, I don't even remember what I was even saying, really.
No, we were talking about basically because Sark is an offensive centric.
Oh, yeah. So that, and then also, like, everyone talks about the schedule and who they've played. You know what is an elite defense that no one talks about who they've played? Notre Dame. All people talk about is how good the Notre Dame defense is. These people, the Fighting Irish, beat A&M 23-13, then lost Northern Illinois 16-14 the next week. Then they beat Hudson Card's Purdue team 66-7, beat Miami of Ohio 28-3, beat Louisville at home 31-24, just beat Stanford at home 49-7. And guess what? Is a group of opponents that includes Notre Dame, Northern Illinois, Purdue, Miami of Ohio, Louisville, Stanford. Is that really that different from what Texas has faced? Is it? No. But guess what? People are going to say what they're going to say because there's a Longhorn logo. That's how it works. And honestly, you could say the same thing about Notre Dame. But while I am a hater at different times, I give credit where credit's due. And Notre Dame does have a good defense. That's a fact. So, obviously there's more reasons than, who Sark with a part of the ball that he comes from and, the different logos involved or whatnot. But this is an elite defense. No ifs, ands, or buts. And everyone watching this show probably knows that. And if they don't, now they do, I guess. So, yeah. And I don't know. It was a great weekend. I think it was ugly at times, but, I'll be honest, and I think I kind of said this I believe I said this on the show towards the end of last week. I started to feel kind of 2022 vibes going into this weekend's game. Once we got to the fair and I don't know, just the energy there. There was never any point on Saturday where I didn't think Texas was going to win that game. There's never any point on Saturday. And it was even after the first 3 and outs, the interception, the 2 3 and outs after. There was never a single point in that game I did not think Texas was going to win. And from the jump, OU's offense kind of, I feel like, told you that. Seeing Michael Hawkins run around on the first play, I turned to – and I have some funny stories from this weekend, by the way. And I guess we'll go over them with Keenan if we don't before you get to the press conference. But great weekend, great win. And yeah, anytime you beat OU by 30 plus, you take it regardless. So
usually for the first 2 possessions each offense has in the Texas OU game, my stomach is just in a knot. And it's funny, I started wearing an Apple Watch last week. My wife got it for me for my birthday, and I just activated it, turned it on last week. There were 3 times in the first half where it gave me – all I'm doing, Jordan, is I'm sitting in the press box at the Cotton Bowl watching the game and typing in the game thread and making notes. There were 3 times where it gave me a high heart rate little notification. It's we noticed you're sitting down, but your heart rate exceeded 120 beats per minute. I'm like, that just probably tells me I probably just get too wrapped up and too emotionally involved and invested in this game because to me, it's the best game in college football.
Do you remember what the 3 plays were, or instances or whatnot?
Well, one was right after the Quinn interception. And one was right before I think the Wisner. It was either the Wisner touchdown run or the Wisner fumble that Silas Bolden fell on.
Yeah. Okay. Whit Weeks was the other co-defensive player of the week for the SEC. That makes sense. I didn't watch that entire game. I watched the last quarter and a half. Whit Weeks kind of won them that game at the end, the final drive. He played out of his mind.
18 tackles against Ole Miss, 2 TFLs, a sack, and a forced fumble. So,
okay. Yeah. So, no, talk about, before you get out of here and got to run to your press conference, how was your day on Saturday? Run us through start to finish.
Man, I'm worried that the Cotton Bowl and Fair Park are just getting to the point where I don't know how much longer realistically they're going to be able to handle having this game just because of the logistics issues. I know there's improvements coming to the Cotton Bowl in 2025, but man, it's getting to the point where I'm I don't, short of just building a new stadium on site, I don't know what you can do to modernize that thing. I mean, there was a point in the press box, and in a lot of ways, we're talking about first world problems. They didn't have running water in the press box at one point. It's just stuff you can't have happen. I got to the media parking. I pulled up about between 12:30 and 12:45, and was told that the lot was full. So I had to end up parking right. I ended up parking on Haskell.
Front yard.
But no, I ended up parking on Haskell because I had a pass, but it was basically like right at almost exactly a mile from where I parked to the front into the main gate at the Cotton Bowl to get on the fairgrounds. So yeah, it was a little hike, but other than that, man, once I got settled in, it was fine. The Fletcher's booth was closed by the time I got out of the press box, which I was pretty disheartened over. But you can't win them all. I did get a corn dog. It wasn't a Fletcher's, but it was all right. The other thing I really want to discuss real quick is Quinn Ewers, and we touched on this. Go to Horns 24/7. By the way, today's our last day at Horns 24/7 to take advantage of our current sub promo, 50% off an annual subscription. If you're a monthly subscriber, you can upgrade to an annual at that same rate. So it's a really good deal to take advantage of. But we touched on Quinn in our roundtable, and all of us as a staff, myself, you, Chip, Eric, Hank, none of us are really concerned about Quinn over the long term. And I'll give you these numbers, Jordan, because I broke these down last night. Quinn, and this is including a couple clunkers, which the Oklahoma State game, his redshirt freshman year, and the TCU game, his redshirt freshman year. 2 games where he was objectively terrible in both of those games.
Yeah.
Quinn against AP top 25 teams, against ranked opponents in his career after the OU game. 277 of 442, which is about 63% on a completion rate. 3,423 yards, 19 touchdowns, 9 picks, 88 rushing yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. And by the way, Quinn's got a 6-6 record against ranked opponents. 4 of those losses were in his first year. Right? Alabama counts as one because he started the game, and then you've got TCU, Oklahoma State, and then the bowl game against Washington, which he actually played pretty well. My thing with Quinn is this. Sark is going to give his starting quarterback, who's earned the right to be the starter in his eyes, he's going to give him every opportunity to fail out of that position or prove themselves worthy before he makes a change. And if you think about Quinn's career, those 2 games I mentioned, Oklahoma State, where Quinn clearly wasn't right because he had slammed his finger in the car door leading up to the game, and then the TCU game where he was just not good. Sark had every reason in the world to go to Hudson Card, and he didn't. And granted, it's probably a different world when Hudson Card's your backup quarterback compared to Arch Manning being your backup quarterback. But Sark has made it very clear he's going to ride or die with Quinn, and I think Quinn's track record against ranked opponents, how well he's played in big games, I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt. He's not going to come out and say it was rust for the same reason Xavier Worthy never came out and said he played half of his sophomore season with a broken hand. Guys, when they get in front of a microphone and they're talking to the media, nobody's going to be 100% open and honest because they don't have to, first of all. Second of all, nobody's going to get up there and make anything that sounds or could be misconstrued as an excuse. Quinn's just not going to do that. But we could tell he was rusty. But there was a stretch, Jordan, during that game where kind of in the middle stages of that game, he started 1 for 3 with the interception. There was a stretch where he was 14 for 18 for 149 yards and a touchdown. And granted, he did have the deep throw to DeAndre Moore and Ryan Wingo had the big catch and run. Gunnar Helm had a couple big catch and runs. But I think 2 really good throws to mirror how Quinn settled in was the interception where he couldn't have overthrown Matthew Golden worse if he tried. And Billy Bowman was just right there for the interception. The next time they ran that towards the end of the game in the third quarter on that in-breaking route, dude, he hit Matt Golden in stride, and Golden rips it off for a 20-plus yard gain. I'm like, okay, Exhibit A is Quinn not being settled in, not being sure of himself, kind of unsure maybe what he's looking at. Exhibit B is Quinn being dialed in, locked in, and then now you see the stuff that why he's projected to be a high first-round pick. So I think once he's back at home, and I'll say this to set us up for Georgia week, Jordan, I don't think we're going to – just me thinking, I don't know how much exotic stuff we're going to see from Georgia just because Kirby Smart, a lot like Nick Saban, man, he's going to do what he does defensively. They're going to play the same coverages. They're going to play some quarters coverage. They're going to have pretty much the same blitzes. I think it's going to be easier for Sark to dial it up against Kirby Smart, playing the man, not the hand, than it was for him to dial it up against Brent Venables, who will disguise and will do different things. I think Kirby Smart is going to be more of what you see is what you get. So that's going to set us up for Texas, Georgia.